it's Natasha, and thank you so much for joining me today. Now in this video today, this is going to be a real scrap buster kind of video. We are using up these scraps. I have done a couple of projects recently from a couple of my current favorite paper pads, and I had these pieces here. They're not tiny scraps, but they're not big either. They're kind of mostly long, kind of skinny-ish shapes, and I wanted to come up with something that I could use these for rather than them kind of sitting in a pile. I like to clean things off my desk and kind of get rid of them, so just popping them in a container for later is something that I don't love to do, because often that's the best way for me to forget about them. So whilst I'm here, I'm going to use these up, and I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to do today's technique. I don't know what the technique is called, but it's just a scrap busting video. These are the two paper pads that they are from, and the one on the left is the Storyteller by Vicki Boutin, and the one on the right is from Simple Stories. That's the Vintage Country Harvest, and both of these are absolutely gorgeous. The one on the left is an absolute favorite of mine, and I know you've been seeing a couple of videos from this one, but once I got it out, I kind of couldn't stop making cards using that paper pad. It's a favorite for sure. Now I'm going to start off with a white piece of paper. This is actually normal cardstock, but I guess you could use our copy paper too. And I'm just going to pop one scrap down, and then if you are not sure about how to do this, you can kind of lay it out first if you want to, but I am relatively sure of where I'm heading with this, well, sort of, as I kind of sort through the pieces. So I'm just going to glue it down and be a little bit risky and just kind of glue as I go. So then I just want to cover up kind of all of those corners, and I'm sort of working in a triangle. Then for the next round of pieces, I'm going to kind of take each corner of the triangle and put a straight piece along there. So I know that this looks a little bit crazy, but I promise this will come together. So finding the other edge and then putting a straight piece along there, and then finding another piece where I'm going to kind of start adding a few more than just the 3 pieces when it comes to this next layer. Now there is no rhyme or reason about how you kind of do this technique. I don't, as I said, even know the name of it. It's just really a scrap busting technique that I like to do, and in theory you can pretty much use any pieces of paper pad or colored paper or printed paper, or even paper that you have created the backgrounds. You could use those for all of these. Definitely using paper from the same paper pad means that it's likely to coordinate without you having to think about it at all, but as I said, I use these 2 paper pads and they still coordinated fairly well together. They have some similar colors, but some really different, and I still think these went together a-okay. So I am just going to keep going until I pretty much know all of my the base of that piece of card front is covered at the bottom, so I can't see that anymore. Now I do realize that this creates some more scraps, because obviously I'm going to trim off the edges, but I'm still using up, and I will still have less than what I started with, and then that just means that you can start the technique again on your next piece. So this is if you want to cover up your whole kind of card front. Now there is another way to do this, which I'll show you in just a minute, if you want to kind of keep a sentiment in the middle or keep a space free where you could potentially pop a sentiment later on. So I'm just using my Tim Holtz long bladed scissors to get a nice clean cut. I'm going to trim this up a little bit later on, but I just wanted to kind of trim the outsides. And then look what we ended up with. I don't know about you, but I really like this technique. I love that look. Now here is where I'm just going to quickly show you what I would do if I were to have a sentiment that was going to go in the middle. So I kind of placed one in there just so that you can see. And then instead of starting with a triangle, I tend to just work my way around whatever the shape can be. I mean, you can make it a hexagon, you can make it an octagon, you can make it a pentagon, you can make it anything. It doesn't have to be kind of nice and even. It can just be pieces of paper popped around. And then I start going around again to kind of cover up the next layer and go round and round. And then if I thought that I probably could have started in a little bit more, you can kind of shift it all in like this and squish everything in a little bit more and make it exactly the right size that you need. Now, I was just kind of doing that to give you an example of what I would do, but I'm going to flick back to the first one that we created and turn this into an actual card, because although backgrounds are awesome, I love turning them into cards to make sure that you can get a couple of ideas on how you would go about that for this particular design. Now I have some lawn fawn vellum here. This is my favorite and only vellum that I use. I'm going to trim it down so I've got kind of a nice thin strip there. I don't want to cover up a whole lot of this background because as you can see it's gorgeous and I want to show off exactly what we've created. I don't want to hide it. So I decided to use some quick sentiments. This is a really quick card to create, and in fact I think these took me maybe less than 15 minutes all up start to finish to make this card. So I have just kind of condensed it a little bit just with editing out bits and pieces, but yeah, really quick card to make. This is the Tim Holtz Sentiments label stickers. It's called Sentiments, which means there is exactly that. There are lots of different sentiments in here. And it does come with a couple of sheets, but I'm going to kind of mix and match some of these and cut a little bit out of other ones, some that I know that I probably won't use quite as much. So I'm going to cut this little, this says note to self, but I just want the little word to out of here, and then I'll pop the other bit back, and then this is going to say happy birthday to you, and I'm going to take the word you from another one as well. Just because I know that there are a couple of sentiments I wouldn't use otherwise, and I may as well use up the stickers individually if that's a better way to use them. So I am going to pop these on. These, I really like the black. It needed to be really strong. I could have made it white, but I like the black because it stands out from that really quite busy background, and the vellum is going to mean that we can see the pattern that is behind. We can see what we've created, so it's not being completely covered up, but I can still pop a little sentiment on there nonetheless. Now I did think about having kind of a little banner hanging down from the top, or a little vellum star, or a little vellum circles or something that I could pop it on, but again I just didn't want to take anything away from the background that we had created because that was kind of the star of this card. So I'm cutting that vellum strip kind of as thin as it can go without running into the sentiments, because again I want to make sure I cover up the least amount, and then I am going to trim down the card. Now when it comes to trimmers, I use this Tim Holtz trimmer because I don't want, with like a sliding trimmer, I don't want any of the blades to catch on any little pieces, on any little edges of the paper. So I'm going to use this trimmer, and that way I come straight down. And I do have to kind of give it a little jiggle wiggle because at some points on the edge there, some of those pieces are like 3 pieces of cardstock thick. So occasionally I have to give it kind of a little jiggle wiggle to get through those layers. But all in all, this is a really sharp blade, and I do really like this trimmer. It is very clean cutting, and the blade is always stayed nice and sharp, which is really important when you're going to invest in something like this. So once I have trimmed up the edges there, then I'm going to pop a little bit of, just a couple of little pieces of double-sided tape behind some of the words. I like to do this if I can when I'm using vellum, because I don't like the vellum to bow in the middle when I put it from top to bottom. It's quite a distance top to bottom, and I don't like that bowing where the vellum kind of bows up. So if I can, I will hide a couple of little pieces, and the sentiments that I chose to use on this one made it really easy to hide them. So here I was just figuring out whether I want it to go on the right or the left. And I ended up kind of changing my mind about which side. So on the back here, it now means I've got these in the wrong place, but I will just pull off that double-sided tape and then pop down a couple of new pieces on the side that I chose in the end, and then I can fold over those excess little pieces of vellum. And I know that I've got the double-sided tape in the middle holding the vellum, so it's not going to bow, and that just is another thing to secure it down. But a very clean and simple card, really fun to make, and really fun to use up your scraps, your little pieces that are odd shapes and not kind of nice long strips, for lots of the scrap busting videos that are out there as well that use the really long strips. So this one kind of suits those more chunky solid little scraps that you have. Thank you so much for joining me today. I will leave links to the supplies that I have used down in the description box below this video in case you would like to check them out. Other than that, I would really love to see you in the next video, so give me a thumbs up and I will see you then. Bye!